Hi everyone, Tyler Manion here, NPC and IFBB Pro League Vice President. This will be your Mr. Olympia recap for the Wellness Division, brought to you by Wolfpack. I was very, very happy to see the overall quality of the Wellness Division at this year's Olympia. Really, for me, I felt like the whole first two call-outs really exemplified what we want to see in this Wellness Division. All great representatives of the type of physiques that we want to see, the type of development that we want to see, the type of conditioning that we want to see. Obviously, some are better than others. That's why they place better. But overall, I felt like this was the most consistent that the girls have been at the Olympia from 1st to 15th place that I've ever seen since we have included this division in the organizations. And I feel like that just shows that everything is going in the right direction in this division, and everybody can see really what the criteria is, but also the athletes and the coaches are learning that criteria and applying it to their athletes, because the athletes looked very, very good, literally all the way through the first two call-outs. Overall, even in general, all the women that competed in the Wellness Division, I thought brought very solid looks and packages, but very, very happy with the top 15. Can't say it enough. So great job to all the competitors and all their coaches that were responsible for that. Now that I said that, let's get into it. I think the top three girls were very, very impressive at this show. Even with how good the rest of the competition was, I felt like they kind of separated themselves from the pack here at this show specifically. So for me, I'll go through the top three. And for me personally, I think it was a very close show between Eduarda and Isa for first and second, with Elisa following very, very closely behind. But for me, I think these were the top two. This is how I judged it personally. I thought they were the top two, and I thought it was very, very close, as you're going to see what made the difference between first and second. So in first, we had Eduarda, and second was Isa. First is the front pose. For me, this is Eduarda's biggest strength. Her front pose is very, very good. She has obviously the correct amount of development in her upper body. You see very nice hourglass shape even in this front pose, down into a nice small waist. You see the fullness and roundness through her glutes even in the front pose, into the right size lower body with the correct conditioning. Isa has definitely improved her front pose, probably year over year. However, for Isa, it's just comes down to her natural shape. She does not display the same natural hourglass shape, especially in that upper body in this front pose. So for me, it just looks like her torso, is a little bit longer. It doesn't have quite the same hourglass shape. Again, the lower body looks great. You still see that hourglass shape, though, when it comes down into the glutes. You see that glute roundness and fullness still from the front, and then the proper amount of development in the legs as well. And again, the right amount of conditioning. So for me, even though she has improved this pose, I think this is a very clear Eduarda pose to give Eduarda the lead. Next, we'll go into the first quarter turn. So in the first quarter turn to the right, I feel like this is Eduarda's strong side. This is Isa's weaker side. So again, you see that nice hourglass shape in the upper body for Eduarda. Coming down, very nice and full glutes. You see the full glutes balanced out very well with the leg development, with the quads and the hamstrings. The conditioning is great. The overall lower body balance, very, very good. Pair that with how her upper body looks, very strong side pose for Eduarda. For Isa, again, I think she improved this pose, even from the Arnold this year, from the Olympia last year. However, you just don't see that same hourglass shape when we're comparing her right next to Eduarda. However, going to the lower body again, the glute fullness, much better on Isa, very improved. The leg development and balance between the quads, the hamstrings, and the glutes, very good in the right condition. So still a very, very good pose, but comparing her right next to Eduarda, I give this as a clear pose for Eduarda. So now Eduarda takes this 2 poses to 0. Now we get to the back pose. The back pose for me was a very interesting pose, because if you see Elisa, if you see Isa, you can see their foot placement. It's basically right below their shoulders are where their heels are. So their heels are at basically shoulder width apart. This is basically the standard of where you should have, your feet be placed in the back pose. Eduarda, a lot of the times, was just opening up her legs and placing those feet too far apart. So it was making the pose look awkward in itself. Eduarda's glutes are very, very good, very strong. They're very full. The depth to them, the projection is very good. For Isa, she's obviously posing properly. She improved her glutes immensely, in my opinion, from last year's Olympia, from this past year's Arnold. This back pose has improved tremendously. And when they're in the back pose itself, even though I think Eduarda's glutes themselves are a little bit better than Isa's, the whole pose and how it flows looks better on Isa. Again, both these girls were in the correct conditioning, so everything was very, very elite. It was at an elite level. But Eduarda Eduarda, just the foot placement made this look so awkward. So in the back pose itself, I lean towards Isa for the overall balance and just how the pose flowed much, much better. So I gave Isa the win in the back pose itself to make it 2 poses to 1. Next up would be the next quarter turn. Again, for me, everybody tends to have a stronger side when it comes to a side pose. This is Isa's stronger side. This is Eduarda's a little bit weaker side. For me, Isa displays hourglass shape for some reason much, much better on this side pose. How the leg looks with the glutes, the whole lower body development is very, very strong in this pose. Go over to Eduarda, obviously still has nice hourglass shape, but you don't see it as well as the other side pose. Comparing their side leg here too, for me, I think Isa's side leg on this side is much better than her leg on the first quarter turn. Eduarda's is still strong, but again, I feel like it's a little bit weaker than when on the other side. When you put these two right next to each other and together, for me, I feel like you see that balance and the projection, even with the glute fullness, everything on this side for the side leg, this front side leg for Isa, pops more, it projects more, and the overall balance just looks better and flows better with her pose, with her upper body in this pose. So I think this is a close pose, but for me, I give it to Isa just by a little bit. So now we're at 2 poses to 2 right now. And for me was the tiebreaker, and why I went with Eduarda is because when doing the model walk to the back, I feel like you could see that Eduarda does have the better glutes. Obviously, when she's doing the walk, she does the walk very, very well. So her legs look much better. Nothing is spread out too wide. Nothing looks awkward. So for me, the walk to the back and the walk back to the front, I give that edge to Eduarda, especially in the glute projection and the fullness. Really, it's still, I think, very close. I think, Isa's glutes have improved a ton. Obviously, her legs look great, but when looking at the whole entire body through the walk to the back, and then of course the whole entire body, which means from the front as well, walking back to the front, I give that to Eduarda, and that's how I ended up with Eduarda in first place, Isa in second place. Both these women exemplify what we want to see in wellness, and honestly, what a close contest. Extremely impressive. Both were definitely better than they were at the Arnold Classic this year. Isa by a very, very considerable amount, and I thought these two pushed each other very hard at the show. So very happy to see both the looks from them. Getting into third, which was Elisa. Again, for me, separated herself from the rest of the pack, was very, very close with these two, but I think just a touch behind. Really, I think from the back, Elisa is great. You see, she also has great development to her glutes, great fullness, depth, and projection. Her legs are the proper size. So again, another girl who is following the criteria very, very well. For me, where I think she lacks with the other two, because the conditioning, again, her conditioning was right where we want to see it for wellness. So the differences in the front and both side poses, I think she lacks a little bit and loses to both of them in most of these poses. For me, her front pose maybe just twisted slightly too much in the upper body. I'm not sure if that's what would change it to make it look slightly better, but for me, I think she needs to make a slight tweak to her front pose to make it, flow a little bit better. And then the side poses, I think maybe it's possible that she's just sitting into her hips just a little bit too hard because she's turned to the side. I mean, especially on the first quarter turn, I think her second quarter turn is the stronger side for her. But the first quarter turn, I feel like she's almost just sitting into it. So her body's twisted just a little bit too much to the side on these quarter turns. And then even on her better side, which is the second quarter turn, which is the right side forward, you can see comparing her side leg to Eduarda and also to Isa's that the glute fullness and projection, but also the balance in the legs doesn't quite look the same as it does on Isa and on Eduarda in that second quarter turn. So even though that's her stronger side, I still feel like she's a little bit behind both the girls that placed in front of her on that pose. So honestly, for her, it's just very, very little tweaks. She has definitely improved a ton over the last year. And again, I think overall, just a touch behind the two ahead of her and can compare and be with these two at whatever show they all do. Again, if it's next year's Olympia, then next year's Olympia. It could go any way at this point. These girls are very, very impressive. Now we'll move into the girls that took 4th, 5th, and 6th. Again, very, very good representations of the wellness division. So in 4th, we had Hayani. For me, this is by far her best package ever. One of the biggest things for her is her waistline always looks a little bit thicker than a lot of the top girls. Actually, all of Hayani, Valkyria, and Leonida competed together this year at multiple shows, especially at the Pittsburgh. And Hayani ended up in second place at that show, but still her waist was for sure the widest out of all three of these girls. And whatever she did to improve the waistline worked incredibly. This was the smallest her waistline has looked, best her front pose has looked, the best both of her side poses have looked, and actually the best her back pose has looked too, but especially from the front and the sides, the difference in the waistline made these poses flow so much better. The conditioning for her was spot on as well. I think really the main thing for her that she can continue to improve on is just adding a little bit more development and fullness to the glutes. I don't think she really needs any more size to the legs. You see she has good balance in the legs from the front, from the side, the lower body. The hamstrings and the quads are very balanced. They don't need any more development. Still can use a little bit more of that fullness and development to the glutes, but obviously nitpicking here. But for her to make that next step up and challenge those top 3 girls, I just think that overall glute development is what needs to come up a little bit more while keeping the size she has everywhere else. The conditioning was great, and the waistline, if she continued to bring in this waistline that she brought at this show, she is definitely a threat when she makes a little bit more improvement to move up and take that next step to get next to those top 3 girls. In 5th, we had Leonida. I think for Leonida, she has obviously a great physique for wellness as well. Upper body has the correct development. She has a very nice waistline. For me, her conditioning is always very good. I think she could still use in the lower body just a touch. A touch in this case means very minimally, just a touch more conditioning. For her, I think in the side poses, you see that she could use just a touch more development to her legs. And it might be a touch more development, but also might be because I think she's placing her foot at an angle of directly to the side instead of maybe diagonal a little bit. I feel like normally when the foot is placed more of at a 45-degree angle, you're able to bring out a little bit more depth in your side leg, but also a little bit more balance between the quads and the hamstrings while still keeping that fullness to the glute. So I think this may be, one of these things to help with both of her side poses. And then from the back, I think she can use just a touch more to the glute development as well. And like I said, again, just razor thin, a little bit more of conditioning. But again, overall for her, she continues to improve and is a great representation of what we want to see. In 6th was Valkyria. For me, Valkyria can use a little bit more width to her legs, especially in the front pose. I think in both of her side poses, she was posing relatively well, but I think upper body wise, she wasn't standing up quite tall enough, keeping the chest up a little bit more. That would have enhanced just the overall flow of the pose and the hourglass shape that she displays here. From the back, I think she brings a very solid back pose. I actually think out of 4, 5, and 6 that she has the best glute development. But when it comes to the other poses, I think she was just lacking a little bit in how she was posing, and also again in the front pose a little bit more of that leg width, because as you can see in the back pose, she has the proper leg development and leg width. So these girls are all very close to each other in 4, 5, and 6. But again, if you're looking at what we want to see in wellness, every single girl that I've just reviewed is a great representation of the proper development, the proper conditioning, and really standard of what we want to see in this division.